This is District Breakdown. That's Diggs. I'm the Wizard. We're talking 5A Division Two, our last 5A Division Two district in the DFW area. And we were just talking off camera. They kind of broke this thing up. I mean, teams like Everman and that just barely made the playoffs, and Seguin that didn't make it, and Summit that did make it. Well, they shipped them all off to our 5A Division Two. And now who are we left with, Diggs? Who do we have going at number one in this district? Who's the team to look out for?
We got some teams coming up from 4A Division One. We've got some teams coming down. We got to figure all of this out. This is like you said, a brand new kind of a shakeup of a district. It's like our Scrabble when you don't have any words in Scrabble. You got to put all the 7 tiles back in there, shake that bag, and get 7 new tiles. But the tile I like at number one is still Midlothian Heritage. We're talking about all the teams that lose to South Oak Cliff a couple of weeks ago in 4-5A. Well, Midlothian Heritage the last 2 years has had to deal with South Oak Cliff, and guess what? Still got to deal with South Oak Cliff, Midlothian Heritage. I think they would have preferred to go Region 1 and to deal with one of those districts. But they got a lot of talent coming back. I remember watching Midlothian Heritage a couple of times last year, and I was really impressed with Carter Rutenbar, and he's going to be back. The all-everything wide receiver Ryan Satterwhite, who's a two-way player. He was a first-team cornerback and a first-team wide receiver. They got him back, and Chris Robinson, a very talented wide receiver, coming back. So they got that offensive talent that you're going to have with Rutenbar and Satterwhite and Robinson, but they got some defensive talent as well. So I think Midlothian Heritage is by far, for me, in that top tier at number one. And then top tier number two, I've got a special tier, just kind of the Ennis tier. I got Ennis at number two. I mean, we could just spend 5 minutes playing highlights of Grayson Harris, and we could keep having that footage go over and over, because what does he not do? He can be quarterback, he can be running back, he can be wide receiver. Just get this kid the ball, and he's going to find a way to get in the end zone for you, Ward. I see a bobblehead in this kid's future.
I
I'm
do
just
too.
excited about him because he is an everything player.
I see the same thing. I was going to say that was going to be my first question. Where is he going to play this year? Where is he going to start off at? Is he going to start off at quarterback because their quarterback from last year is onward?
And we don't know. And that's the great thing about Ennis is that, if they have a quarterback coming up, they might put him there. You might see Grayson Harris at quarterback. It's just kind of what the depth of the program is going to be. But they've got a really good receiver in Lamarian McGowan coming back. But there's a lot of questions there. And Ennis took it on the chin last year to Lovejoy. But I think Ennis getting this district instead of that 3-5A or 4-5A they're a big winner, because they're going to be down relative to last year, but they're up because I think they can look at this and go, okay, well, we can maybe go a round or two as well, even though we don't have everybody outside of Grayson Harris in our district on our team. We're going to be down as a team, but we might actually go further in the playoff run. After that, Ward, I think we're going to be looking at Kaufman County, trying to figure out who is going to come out of that with Terrell, Crandall, and Kaufman, because there's a lot of questions in that three. You got Terrell, they lost everything pretty much. They got one running back coming back in Tymon Ambers, who had 5 touchdowns and 700 yards, but they lost everybody else on the offensive side of the ball. Crandall, they lost a lot as well, but they got their stud wide receiver Jeremiah Douglas coming back, and Hudson West on the defensive side of the ball. The team I'm going to say to keep an eye on, and Ward, you're not going to like this because last year they went 3-8. You're telling me, Ward, I know you're a record watcher, Ward. You're like, that team went 3-7 and lost in the first round of the playoffs. We can't trust them. And now we're coming up to 5A Division 2, and you're going to tell me a 3-7 team in 4A Division 1 is going to come in here to 5A Division 2 and shock the world? I'm telling you, Ward, watch out for Kaufman. Ty Burleson was a fantastic quarterback for Kaufman last year. He threw for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns, but he's kind of got that Noah Lugo effect on you, that he also threw for 13 interceptions. So if he can get that number down, I think that they have a really good chance to do something. They've got their stud wide receiver in Aldor Miles coming back. He received 836 yards last year and 9 touchdowns. They've got Elijah Rose, who had 483 yards and 4 touchdowns coming back. They lost to Frisco Panther Creek in the first round, but they pushed Frisco Panther Creek at 3-7. It was 56-28. But they were very competitive with them for that first half, and then Panther Creek pulled away in the second half. So Kaufman is a team that I'm looking for that I think could get as high as third in this district if things work out. but there's still a lot of questions there. Can they do it? But that's kind of my dark horse team. Keep an eye on
Dark
Kaufman,
horse.
Ward. We're going to be talking about them a lot in the podcast. You're going to be digging for wisdom. I know you don't like those teams out there in East Texas. You don't like Malakoff and Kaufman and all those teams out there, but that's a team I'm gonna challenge you to keep an eye on.
Kaufman's all right. I like that. Look, I get all giddy when you start talking tiers because my producer head starts shooting. Okay, he's talking tiers. Let me see what games I'm going to be shooting this year, where I'm going to be sending cameras. But when you give me tier 1 with one team, tier 2 with one team, and then tier 3, I'm like, oh, I guess my cameras aren't going to make it out to this district as much as I like because tier 3's got the majority.
9-6A, 6-5A doubleheader out there, a little
Yeah.
Kaufman Terrell and
then
Wiley
roll over to
East
Garland
versus
somewhere.
Saxe game.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the last two teams. You know, Randy Jackson went over there to Greenville to keep that thing afloat because they were seriously thinking about, well, we may not be able to play football this year because we don't have a coach. He came in there, kept it afloat. Now he's back to retirement. What do we think about Greenville? What do we think about Corsicana?
Well, they got the new their new coach, David Collins, former Flower Mound Marcus offensive coordinator, also former Richardson Pierce coach. So he is somebody who's very familiar with coaching. He's obviously going to come in there and do good things at Greenville. But he's got to look at what they've got coming back and go, well, you know, we're going to have to do a little bit of rebuilding. There are two really good pieces that Greenville are going to have coming back. They've got Greg Washington, a very talented running back. He had 600 yards last year and 5 touchdowns. And DeAdrian Payton is a human highlight reel at wide receiver. He had 11 touchdowns and 1,000 yards. So that's a really good place for an offensive mind like David Collins to start out with. Quarterback, I don't know who's going to be slinging the ball around for Greenville right now. There's going to be a battle going into that. Also, Corsicana, they have a new coach. They've got Eugene Rogers. He was over at North Crowley and then came over to Waxahachie. He was the defensive coordinator over there. Corsicana graduated a lot too, but they do got their quarterback coming back in Chris Martinez, but everybody else is a big question mark. Then you got Mesquite Poteet. I think Poteet is going to take a sigh of relief that they are in this alignment, but I don't know that they're going to fare much better. They didn't win a game last year. I think they're going to be more competitive, but I think they're going to be on the outside looking in. But Jaden Walker is a really talented wide receiver. He had 500 yards last year and 4 touchdowns. He's a good enough thing to keep touchdown Ted Madden. He's going to be excited about Mesquite Poteet because I think Poteet has a real opportunity to be competitive for a playoff spot in this district. Because after that tier 1 and tier 2, you got 2 playoff spots that are wide open.
That's true. And as long as you're still in it, weeks 9, 10, and 11, you got to be happy with yourself. All right. Now I'm going to force you to make decisions. Where you got 1 through 8 here?
You can tell me because I got, Midlothian Heritage. They are tier 1. I've got them number 1. I've got Ennis number 2. I've got Crandall number 3. I've got Kaufman number 4. Terrell number 5. That was a tough one for me, but I had to drop them. I've got Greenville number 6, Corsicana number 7, and Mesquite Poteet number 8. But I think anybody in that bottom 6 could be competitive for those last 2 playoff spots. So this could be one where you're roasting me, Ward, next year like, Diggs, you knew nothing about this district. This is one where you might see a lot of parity for that 3rd and 4th playoff.
This is the one we dig back up real quick. What's going on over there at Poteet? Obviously, they're losing numbers because they dropped. They're dropping down to 5A Division II. But that was a team that we always, as short as like 10 years ago, we were very excited about them come postseason.
Randy Jackson magic. When Randy Jackson touches a program, he makes it good.
It's good.
When he leaves, what can you do? But Poteet has definitely struggled, and the growth in Mesquite ISD is definitely not there. It's more toward Mesquite Horn is where you kind of see the increased growth in Mesquite ISD. But we're going to see Coach Jackson go over to West Mesquite and try to rebuild that program. We'll see if Mesquite Poteet can rebuild because it's always a better world. And I'm not saying this because we love touchdown Teddy. It's always a better world when we have Mesquite ISD being competitive and playing good football into November.
Absolutely. All right. Next week, we're going up into 5A Division I, where there is 9-team districts aplenty over there in the DFW area. So we're excited about
Title 10. Are we welcome there? Did you get that restraining order lifted?
No, I'm good. You're not good, but I'm good.
I'm not good, but you're good. So
we'll
talk about Title Town, and we'll see if they can get number 13.
We never know. Appreciate it, Diggs. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week, Ward.